What's a hack in your industry that customers aren't supposed to find out? Before we start, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos. I wish you a pleasant viewing experience. Story 1. Former local journalist here. If you want to know something about your town, or pretty much anything locally, or find something hinky that you want investigated, just call or email them and ask, what's happening with that? Insert weird item in city budgets, shut down road cop who got fired. When I was off deadline, I actually loved fielding these questions. They were mainly from old people and pretty much worked as customer service for the city a lot. I directed people to local programs that would help them. I confirmed the start and proposed end dates of construction, and I told people what companies had pulled permits to build that new restaurant on Main Street. Local journalists have a wealth of knowledge in all departments of what is going on in your city because they drift between one or the other frequently, and we ask the other reporters in the cubicle next to us too. They're your tour guides, social workers, watchdogs, and public defenders if you just ask them. They aren't doing it for the money cries and past due bills. They're doing it for the love of their community. They all really embrace the localism aesthetic. I guess this is sort of a not supposed to find out thing, because if everyone did it, they'd never get their other work done. Story 2. I worked at a restaurant, and one time the chef burned the applesauce that was supposed to be served with the pork chop. He put it on the menu as smoked applesauce, and people loved it. Story 3. Accounting is called a sticky business because we don't lose clients often unless we are terrible. We continually raise rates and overcharge because we know clients will just stay with the same person they know, rather than search around. It may be hard to evaluate who is a bad versus good versus great accountant, but that won't matter unless you have a difficult situation or specialized work to be done. What matters is you might find an accountant willing to do the same work for a lot cheaper if you can just put in a little extra time to ask them to ballpark their rates. Think of it this way. People regularly go to different grocery stores, convenience stores, and gas station marts to save a few dollars on things like eggs, candy, or milk. I found eggs for $1.50 when they're normally $2.50 is some big accomplishment. What if you found an accountant willing to do your work for $3,000 instead of $5,000? Isn't that worth a few more calls and meetings that you would gladly use time on to find cheaper eggs? Story 4. This was 6 to 7 years ago, so may not be relevant, but when I worked at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, the higher-ups were so tunnel-visioned on positive customer reviews that if there was any problem at all, we would write off anything from gas to whole days of rentals. We had a few repeat customers that would catch on and habitually complain about dumb shoot to get parts of the bill discounted. Only a rating of completely satisfied counted, and it was tied to bonus and promotion, so a huge incentive to make people happy. Answer. Worked at the Orlando International Airport, Iraq. We did about 3,000 car returns a day during peak season. It was such a profitable location that we gave away so much. People leaving in sports cars if they have a mid-size rental, free GPS, etc. Some guy returned a car and said, hey, I got a warning light to add wiper fluid, so I went and spent a few bucks and topped it off. My manager gave him $150 off his rental for the inconvenience. He wasn't even mad about having to top off the fluid, he was just letting us know. Another time we had a family with a full Disney trip booked with young kids late at night. You can tell which families are just kind of barely getting this trip pulled off and aren't really flush with cash. They asked about extending their rental before leaving, and I tried to match their daily rate and ended up setting their weekly rate as the daily rate. They basically got another week free. They were insanely grateful, and my manager didn't bat an eye. I do miss that job. Story 5. Good audio engineers will have faders knobs that don't do anything. When the talent asks for a change that's goofy or makes no sense, we'll adjust that phantom knob and watch them nod their head in approval of their amazing idea. Story 6. When I worked in a hotel as a night porter, the room cost was totally reliant if you were a male body part or not. I obviously couldn't just give rooms away, but I could pretty much knock off 50. One day, a very tired woman came in with her baby, and I couldn't get the payment to go through at all. So I did give it to her for nothing, just had to make sure she was out before 9 a.m., and I cleaned it myself. Thank you for all the upvotes, awards, and kind words. Answer. A hotel worker saved me when I was 18 driving solo from California to Massachusetts. My mother was setting up hotels to stop at every night on my journey, but in Tennessee, I think, that hotel's policy was you have to be 21 to stay by yourself. The hotel refused to accept me. I was about to sleep in my car, but my mom explained my situation to a different hotel. The worker was a mother themselves and made an exception for me. Being young and alone, it felt hopeless. But I remember the lady at the front desk knowing my name before I even spoke, knowing my predicament and being so nice. Story 7. Dog trainer. This is a hack we want people to understand. One reason we can get your dog to do something so fast is because we use a high rate of reinforcement. Example, I'm training your dog to walk on leash without pulling, and we practice in your driveway. I feed the dog 20 tiny pieces of food by my knee as we walk to the end of the driveway. The first time a client tries the exercise, they may use 5. The mechanics of the exercise look easy, but it takes time to get used to. And when people are practicing on their own, they do other things. Instead of focus on the exercise, they forget how often they need to reinforce the dog for doing the right thing. If they do the exercise for 2 minutes during each walk, with a high rate of reinforcement, ROR, that may be all it takes. And once the dog starts to learn, you can gradually slow down the ROR. Answer. If they do the exercise for 2 minutes during each walk, with a high rate of reinforcement, ROR, that may be all it takes. And once the dog starts to learn, you can gradually slow down the ROR. Fun fact. The best way to keep the training locked in afterwards is to have a random rate of reinforcement. If you go too long, leaving the reinforcement unhandled, though, then you have to start over and reestablish a more consistent rate of handling, ROH. One always leads to the other, which is why it's called a ROH. Story 8. If you need durable medical equipment, ask if the private pay price is cheaper than billing your insurance. Story 9. Former movie theater manager. As long as you purchase something and don't cause a fuss, you can see multiple movies and no one cares. It's only an issue if you cause an issue, and we need the concessions. Also, we all know that you sneak stuff in. Most impressive I've seen. A full rotisserie chicken and a box of wine snuck into Magic Mike. It's okay as long as you don't cause a scene and, again, buy something. Sneak in that candy. Buy the popcorn. Story 10. If you or a teenager you know are admitted to a name brand, expensive rich college, and their financial aid package isn't enough, write them and ask them for more money. Mention the other schools you were admitted to and that you received strong financial packages from them. Do not mention specific numbers unless it's a named scholarship, e.g. presidential or provost. At least 5 of my students this year got between 10 and 20K extra in scholarship money just by soliciting for it. Story 11. Any Marriott booking made partially with points, with a 3-day cancellation policy, can be canceled the same day of the booking without any fees. Answer. Seeing there are many Marriott users here, if you're using a free night award, make sure you're using the closest one in value to the reservation's cost. It's awful to see 85K PTS FNA party too hard on bookings worth 25K PTs. Kind of unethical, but all calls to Marriott hotels go to the same call centers. If you're in a hurry for any matter, just select new reservation and your call will be prioritized in the queue. The guys at the call centers cannot transfer you to the front desk. You'll need to go through the menu to hear the option. Even though Expedia, Booking.com, Hotels.com, etc. offer discounts, it's worth it to book directly from Marriott, as you'll have support via phone, and you can get discounts for being a TDOA member, a senior citizen over 62, or a government employee. Avoid the Marriott Vacation Club promotion. It's just timeshares and you'll need to attend an awful presentation. If you can brighten a call center worker's day, say yes to any promotion that involves transferring at the end of the call. He'll get a reward and you can hang up as soon as he transfers you. Story 12. I used to work in the floral industry. Don't call a large national florist. Look up a local florist in your recipient's area and call them directly. Most have websites to help you choose, and you'll save money on delivery and service fees, which can go towards a nicer arrangement. Also, unless you order flowers regularly, the membership loyalty program is a scam and hard to cancel. Answer, I love having flowers in the house, so order them about twice a month. I only visit a florist website long enough to get the phone number, and my order is the same every time. Florist's choice, whatever is fresh and pleases them, no lilies, don't eliminate my cat, X price including delivery fee. I have routinely received the most beautiful, fresh, and extra arrangements because the florist not only gets to do whatever that actually want, but they know far better than me that say the delivery of sunflowers was withered or the hydrangeas were past their prime. Actually talking to the florist is so helpful when ordering out of town too. I've always found them more than willing to help with special arrangements, like adding temporary bud vases to houseplants for funeral services and for providing guidance on tricky messages when you are out of sorts. Story 13. When a car salesman offers you a premium car care package, don't buy it. It's a scam. Say you're buying a new car and I offer you the premium car care package. It'll only cost you X amount of money per month. But every time you come to the dealership, you get premium car wash. We hose it down. Not a proper car wash. Interior detailing and rejuvenation. We use compressed air to make the dust go away. Sometimes a man uses a wet paper towel. Functions check and clock synchronization. Check if all the lights work, heater and AC work, and set up the clock if it's wrong. Summer and winter inspection and free wiper fluid refill, only done once per season. Check tire tread, visually check tire pressure. Look at temperature gauge to make sure car isn't overheating and add water in the summer. Tiny amount of wiper fluid in winter. Visually inspect brake discs to see they are not scratched by worn-out brake pads. Assistance when you are on the move. You call us and then we can call a tow truck for you at your expense, only possible during business hours. Basically, we charge for simple things you can do yourself. Also, if a car dealership sells you a used car and they told you it has been fully serviced, take it to your local mechanic and have it serviced properly. Story 14. Delivery driver here. Not much of a hack, but loads of people don't seem to know this. If you create an account with the courier who's delivering your parcel, when logged in, you can set up a safe place where we can deliver your parcel to if you're not at home. Well, follow the instructions and leave it wherever you want us to. Within reason, of course. You can probably also do it from the tracking link, but with an account, it'll be set up for every single delivery to your address automatically. Makes both our lives an awful lot easier. Story 15. I used to work in credit cards. If you disputed a charge for less than $75, not as fraud, we would just credit you the money. Most of the time, we wouldn't even investigate it past the initial chargeback. If we didn't win the case, you still got your money back. However, if we find out you figured this out, we would stop giving you the credit unless we won. We've even closed accounts that took advantage of it. But if you want your money back as a one-time thing or whatever, you'd be fine. Story 16. Most industries have retention teams because it costs 10x more to get a new customer than it costs to keep one you have. So if you call up and threaten to cancel every other time they raise your rates, they'll probably give you the introductory rate. Just be aware you might have to switch. Edit, threaten to cancel added. Edit 2. Another thing I'm seeing a lot is people getting shut down with no explanation. People hang up and call back. Just say you got disconnected, you might have better luck with another operator. Yes, they take notes, but some reps are more empowered than others. Also feel free to escalate. Make sure you know how long you've been a customer and how long you've been up to date on your bill. Answer, I had a competing ISP come to my door and offer me what was frankly a crazy good deal here in Canada. So I said, thanks, I'll be in touch. Then called my existing ISP and told them what was up. It took a little while, and I had to repeat, no, that's not good enough. Please cancel my service about 10 times, but in the end, I got a roughly equivalent deal, slightly better in some ways, slightly worse in others, from my existing ISP without needing to switch. Now, I don't really care one way or the other, and was completely willing to switch, which is important. But it is a minor pain in the jerk to switch stuff, and not doing it was a bonus. Story 17. Not sure if your homeowner's insurance will cover something? Apply this one simple rule. Was the damage caused by a sudden and one-time occurrence? If the answer is yes, 99 of the time you're covered. If the answer is no, 99 of the time you're not covered. This advice applies to the US. Story 18. Our physical presence approach toward the user will sometimes fix the problem they are facing without any additional effort. IT support. Story 19. When I worked as a pharmacy tech, I spent a lot of time calling insurance companies and waiting on hold while the world burned around me. One time I got impatient with the voice recognition bot because it kept hearing background noise and made selections impossible, so I started cursing it out. Turns out if you say the F word a few times in a short span, the bot recognizes you as an angry customer and will switch you to a representative real quick. I did this multiple times to a lot of strange looks from my coworkers until I explained the hack. Quick edit, since I'm getting a lot of the same responses. I now know that you can spam 0 or to get the same results. It's a feature being phased out in places. Shouting representative or operator also works. Answer. In a darker time in my life, I used to support a cloud platform for those automated systems. I'm sorry, I know. Another thing you can try on those, especially if you're calling for tech support, is to say sales or select a similar option from the menu. There are different queues at the call center, and the sales queue is almost always highest priority. Thing is, in most call centers, the agents are all the same. The only thing different is the priority of the queue you get into. Choosing sales often gets you to an agent almost immediately, and they can often help you with tech support anyways. Story 20. Therapy cash pay rates are negotiable at many private practices if you are uninsured or your insurance does not cover behavioral health. Story 21. Lean into the bite. I work in pediatrics and we're re-taught that if a child bites you, lean into it. Push whatever part of you they're biting further into their mouth, because their automatic reaction will be to open their mouth and the risk of them breaking your skin is greatly diminished. Source, I was just bitten at work. Edit, a word in grammar. Also, how the hell is my most upvoted comment about being bitten at work? Story 22. Hospital bills are negotiable to a degree. Always ask for an itemized bill and put some effort into analyzing it. Answer, most hospitals will take pennies on the dollar if you pay what you are offering right that moment. They will. Nearly all take payment plans too. If you are insured, know your insurance rules. Most do not allow balance billing, meaning what your EOB says is your responsibility is all you are obligated to pay, not a penny more. If the medical people keep billing higher, call your insurance company and tell them. They can and will often straighten it out for you. Story 23. You don't have to buy solar panels from some door knocker for $20K, $30K. There is absolutely nothing magical or financially superior about what they do. You can just buy the parts or a kit and hire an electrician to install it for about half the retail price. Story 24. Academic here to get a PDF of a paper. You can usually email the author and ask for one. The times I've tried this, they've been happy to share. After checking if it's available on, of course, don't mess around with formatting your references manually. Use something like to automate the whole process. Answer, researcher here, in the U.S., if any portion of a research paper is federally funded or has federal scientists working on it, it must be publicly available free of charge. Check authorship, and if you see any .gov email addresses, it will be available through a federal website somewhere. There are dozens of potential federal research repositories, so an imperfect but good way to find it is search for it on Google Scholar. Then when you find the title, click on the link below the title that says All X Versions. This will list all the places online Google has found the paper and will also show which ones have a PDF available, which almost always includes the free.gov site. Edit. For context, there are 20 federal statistical and research agencies that either conduct research, employ scientists, or provide extramural funding. Some of them are very significant, if not the most significant, sources of research in their individual fields. Some fields that I know have a ton of federal involvement are anything related to health, ecology conservation, natural resources, earth and atmospheric sciences, and agriculture. But the federal research sphere touches everything. Story 25. If you know you're shipping something within a few hours' drive of you, always pay for the cheaper shipping option. The premium shipping option is just a markup if you know you're sending something close by. It will arrive the same day regardless. Answer, I work at the post office. This is mostly true, but only if you have your own box packing material. Let's say you're sending something in state, but don't have a box to send it. The lowest rate for a medium weight package could be 10 if you send it ground, and it will be there in 2 days. However, you will need a box to ship it in, and the box can cost you $3 per 4, so the total will be 13, maybe 14. If you send an in-state package priority flat rate in this situation, you'll pay 18, regardless of how far it's going, and it will also take 2 days. So that's a no. However, we have priority variable rate boxes that are based on weight and distance, and this could cost you 12. And because it's priority, the boxes are free, meaning you actually save money sending it priority. If you have a post office that isn't crazy busy, the best way to ship unboxed items is to bring your stuff to the counter, give them a zip code, and let them weigh it out. The weight, distance, and packing materials needed will determine the least expensive way to ship. There are many situations where going non-flat rate priority is cheaper than ground because you get free boxes and packing tape. Edit. As many people have noted, you will know if your post office is crazy busy, has bad staff, or if it just plain sucks. This happens. My advice works in good post offices. I swear good post offices exist, and we want to help you with your packages. Story 26. If you're nice to my receptionist, I will find a way to squeeze you onto my schedule. If you're a B, then you can have whatever the next available appointment is. If you make the office staff cry, you get a certified letter firing you from the practice. Answer, long time ago, lady I knew was the assistant to the pres of a mid-sized regional pest control company. There was one persistent salesperson trying to get the company onto its products. He was a really good salesman, had good products, good prices, and knew how to schmooze the bosses. But he didn't treat the assistant or the receptionist with respect. One day, the salesman walked out of a meeting with the pres thinking he had just signed a major deal. My friend, the assistant to the pres, saw him walk out. She didn't know he was there, but as soon as he walked out, the assistant walked into the Prez office and said, "That's the B guy I was telling you about." Prez marched out of his office, caught up to the guy, told him the deal was off, not to come back, don't even think about treating his assistant that way, and then called the guy's boss just to make sure his boss knew why the deal was off. You're better off thinking the assistant receptionist is the VP in charge of first impressions. Don't know what exactly that guy did, but his mistreatment of the assistant fudged him. Story 27. I'm a singer, and I book a lot of weddings corporate general gigs. If you come to me directly, rather going through an agency, I can plan and run all the music, whether you want just me and a guitar to full band and DJ for after party. It can literally save you thousands. Some agencies put a 40-60 markup on my services, and I ask them for more than I'd charge someone privately. It's crazy. If you're looking for entertainment, try and contact direct. Story 28. Just ask customer service for a replacement. Doesn't matter if you didn't buy an extended warranty. Doesn't matter if there was no warranty to begin with. A lot of companies just want to resolve customer complaints quickly and will give you free replacements on request. Answer. One time I bought a really nice new computer chair and later was invited to review it. My review was a good one, but I had one minor gripe that was barely enough to mention. It was about the thickness of the padding on the seat part of the chair after extended periods of sitting. A week later, a brand new seat pad arrived at my door. It was unexpected, but I'd 100 buy the chair again and buy from the company again. Still have the extra pad in the box in case I need it eventually. Story 29. Computer engineer here. We ship so many products that have broken features. The product is fused at the factory to disable features that just didn't bake fully before we needed to ship. Every product I ever worked on has a half dozen bugs that we could have fixed if only we had more time and money. Eventually you have to say it's good enough and ship something to make money. Answer. Watched a video on semiconductor manufacturing and was shocked to learn that all the processors in the same generation are actually physically the same. It just comes down to how many defects there were at the end of manufacturing. So i5, i7, i9 Intel CPUs from the same generation are actually all the same prints. i9 just had more functional cores when tested after production. Edit the video. Relevant section like 23 minutes in, but whole thing's worth a watch. Story 30. Many online retailers have what's called cart abandonment marketing strategies. If you put something in your cart and then don't check out, you'll likely receive an email or some kind of messaging with a discount code to incentivize conversion. If you're going to buy something online, always at least try adding to your cart and leaving first before buying. Story 31. I work in IT and can confidently say that providing bribery in terms of food or snack will 100 get your issue taken care of faster and will help you jump the line in the ticket queue. Story 32. If you like to book guided tours while you travel, and you like to do it on Viator, TripAdvisor, or Expedia, you should know that those third-party reselling sites take $22.25 of the booking price for themselves. When local tour companies like mine put our tour offerings on their sites, we agree to give the sites the lowest price. We cannot post a lower price anywhere, because if it's discovered that we do, we will be removed from the platforms. Tour companies like mine will jump to give you a 10-15 discount if you call us and mention you were looking to book via Viator, TripAdvisor, or Expedia. You save 10, we recoup the potential 10-15 that those sites would have taken, and everybody wins. Story 33. Call the nurse line on the back of your insurance card before you go to the ER. If the nurse tells you to go to the ER, insurance should have to bill as a covered claim. If the nurse does not recommend ER, and you still go big bill. Story 34. I work for an airline. I manage the development of the system our call center agents use. Please and thank you will unlock magical doors of help when you're on the phone with the agents or are at the airport dealing with airport staff. Simple politeness no longer seems to exist in these interactions. I've shadowed agents to understand how they use what my teams develop, and I can count on two hands in the 150-200 calls I've listened into over the last year where the caller was polite and acted decently towards the other human on the other end of the line. Story 35. I work in the funeral industry, and they don't tell you that $5,000 casket in the funeral home, you can order it for about $900 from the same place and have it shipped to the funeral home. Most do 2-day shipping. Don't order the flowers through the funeral home. You can get a spray, the flower arrangement that sits on top of the casket, for $100 from Kroger's floral department. The funeral home will charge $300 for the same flowers. You don't need a fancy outer burial container. Just get a concrete box. They will try to sell you a sealed vault that protects the casket. You plan on reusing it? There's no need for that. Story 36. If you buy flights through Spirit at the airport, one of the random fees, it's called the user fee or something like that, doesn't apply, so they cost like half as much. I've flown round trip to Chicago for 30, Houston for 45, Miami for 50, etc. Story 37. If you use Libby to download ebooks from your library to your Kindle, you can turn it to airplane mode and keep the books as long as you want. The next person in line is not affected. Edit. Because not everyone wants to illegally download ebooks from sketchy servers in Tuvalu. It's not any easier than what I suggested. Story 38. Making an application run in multiple platforms, Android, Mac OS, Windows, etc., is a huge pain. But what do all platforms have in common? They can all run Chrome, and Chrome can run portable but slow code. So what do developers do? Developers write applications as standalone web pages and bundle a whole copy of the Chrome browser to view that web page. The application now takes hundreds of megabytes of storage, eats RAM like candy, and every interaction is massively slowed down because it has to go through so many layers. The address bar is hidden and the right-click menu is replaced, but it's still a web browser under the hood. They are basically saving developer time by wasting your time and device resources. That's a big reason why modern applications, Teams, Discord, and Spotify, etc., feel so slow. It's not technically Chromium, since it's missing some features like Google account login. The most popular framework that uses this technique is Electron. Story 39. If you actually do your home exercise program, you won't have to pay for as many physical therapy appointments because it actually helps you. Story 40. We design parts for appliances to break in 5 years. We can make them better, but the OEM doesn't want to pay for it. We used to make the same part last 15 years. Story 41. As a teacher, set limits with devices and instill a love of reading your children. Students who read as a hobby almost always get good grades and succeed in school and beyond. Story 42. Life hack from a lifeguard. If you can't swim, don't go in water where you can't stand up. You'd be surprised how this is not, in fact, common sense. What could he know? Story 43. If you're hurt till and in a lot of pain, the provider will often ask where you're at on the pain scale from 1 to 10. 10 being the worst pain of your life. Don't ever say 10. For whatever reason, it loses your credibility, or something, and makes it seem like you're hamming up your pain level. Instead, say 7, 9. Those are all still very real pain levels and make it seem more reasonable. Providers are very likely to alleviate these levels of pain. I don't know why this is. As a paramedic, it also works on me. Maybe it's because substances seekers will often say 10, and so I'm conditioned to thinking that response is nonsense. Story 44. Name brand packaged salads and generic supermarket branded packaged salads come off the exact same production line, using the exact same raw materials. The difference is just the packaging. Story 45. I don't work there anymore, but I used to work for a cable internet ISP. You weren't supposed to know this, but when customers complained about slow hardwired speeds, we'd show up and pretend to do something, knowing full well that the issue was our nodes being oversaturated everywhere. But we would never tell you. We eventually introduced something called Power Boost to mask the problem by skewing speed tests. Your first 520 seconds would be uncapped bandwidth, and you would think you were getting a quality product when you weren't. Answer: I had a problem like this where my speeds were way below what I was paying at Comcast, and they were unable to fix it by sending out texts. So I filed a complaint with the FCC. Someone from Comcast ended up calling me and actually sent out a tech that managed to fix the problem. My speeds were right at what I was paying. Consistently, filing complaints with the FCC that you're being defrauded seems to actually work. Story 46. In medicine, if you tell your primary that your previous PCP ordered a test, gave you a medication, placed a referral, etc., and that you need to have it represcribed, ordered again, you can get your primary to order or at least consider ordering darn near anything. At least if it's not a controlled substance or an expensive, unusual diagnostic study. The problem is that offices absolutely suck at transferring their records to each other, and confirming that story takes a huge amount of time. For example, if you have knee pain and tell me that your primary diagnosed you with a specific knee issue years back, and that you went to PT and it felt better last time, and I'm sitting in your chart not able to find any record of that, will I spend 10 minutes of time trying to hunt down previous records to confirm this history, obtain reports from physical therapy about the specific exercises you were doing and any imaging studies you had, and whatever else. Will I have you come in for what, as far as I can tell, is an appointment to reassess a known diagnosis that someone else already appropriately diagnosed and treated? Or will I click a button that takes 5 seconds to get you the appointment with PT that you want, that solved your issue last time, completely unaware that the history I was given was completely fabricated? The reality for something benign like a visit to PT is that there's just not enough time to do anything besides send that order and move on. Answer: when I was roughly 25-26, I decided I wanted to take my ADHD meds again because it was not getting better as I got older like I was told. I went to my doc, told him what I took last, the dosage, and the meds that didn't work for me, and that was all I needed. The psych I was originally diagnosed by sold his practice and destroyed my records, or so they said. The second doc I saw for years and had his own practice was just AWOL. No clue what happened to that dude. My current doc couldn't get a hold of my records from the 8 to 9 years prior, so he just put me back on the meds I told him worked best. I expected to jump through more hoops than I did, but I'm glad I didn't. Story 47. For the US only. AccuWeather, along with the vast myriad weather apps, really just uses data provided for free by the Nation Weather Service. Oh, sure, they have forecasters, but no way do they have enough for every county and forecast. Most really just give overall forecasts for general areas. Instead of saying that my app is more accurate, actually go find your local NWS office, and you can find a more specific forecast for your area that will tend to be more accurate overall. And remember, what the NWS literally gives away for free, these companies want to monetize and have you pay subscription fees for what already is free weather data. Edit. Got messaged a cool question regarding why your local NWS would be more accurate. An NWS office will have employees from that region who focus not just on synoptic, large-scale forecasting, but also local patterns and their affect on weather that you just cannot get from a lot of the paid apps. A majority of the apps will literally just take the data from a single weather model, while NWS uses what are called ensembles that give multiple outputs that they can use to not only analyze the agreed-upon patterns, but deduce the most likely outcome before making an official forecast. In the immortal words of the great Bill Paxton, those apps are in it for the money, not the science. Story 48. IT support. You can fix 90 of your problems by turning hardware off and on again. Also, if you're nice to us instead of being horrible, we will fix your problem faster. Emo customer support is not paid enough for all the shoot they have to deal with. Customers are very fudge rude through the telephone. Story 49. I work for a nationwide steel supply company. We sell the same plate of steel sometimes up to 6 or 7 times. What do I mean by that? Say you need a ring of steel that is 5 feet in outer diameter and 4 feet inner diameter. That leaves 4 feet in the middle being cut out of it. Well, you're not just buying the ring, you're buying the whole piece of steel used to cut that ring out of. The piece that comes out from the middle and the corners are called drops. If you don't request we ship the drop to you, then we do not. You get a ring and we get a 4-foot circle of steel to sell again, or multiple times if we can keep cutting it. Story 50. In the hotel industry, if you complain about something and that company just comps it off your bill, it's not because they like you. It's so the next you return, you only remember how great the service was. So you end up spending more money. Also, being a platinum titanium member does not entitle you to being a prick. Story 51. When your paperwork doesn't get processed correctly and we claim it's a system error to imply a software problem, what that usually means is, God damn it, Brenda made a typo again, or Steve in document management never even scanned it into the computer for us to process fudge. Humans are part of the system. Story 52. Premium tire filling using nitrogen instead of atmospheric air has almost no research to back it up. There is basically no difference between the two. It's just a way for tire shops to charge you an extra $50. I must now add that I am well aware of the differing expansion factors of air and pure nitrogen, and that nitrogen can be beneficial in certain applications. However, the difference is negligible for most people who do not drive race cars or fly commercial airplanes. That is why I commented. Most people are unaware of this and do not need to pay for pure nitrogen in their '05 shitbox Civic rant over. Answer: aircraft use nitrogen because it is not as temperature variant as regular air. It is researched and considered a standard of modern aviation. That said, filling an enormous volume in an aircraft tire to 125 and 150 psi is very different than a vehicle tire filled to 35-45 psi. Cars and trucks do not undergo the same stresses as aircraft, so regular air is just fine. It is an almost inconsequential cost to compress low-pressure nitrogen for tires. Charging 50 is highway robbery. You're paying for snake oil. Story 53. Don't buy the first or last year of a car. First year, they're still working out the bugs in the manufacturing process, and the last year, they're focused on getting the new model processes working and less attention on the outgoing model. The very best year is the mid-cycle refresh. Processes should be stable by then, and the refreshed exterior are such minor tweaks from a manufacturing perspective. It's not affecting quality, and as a perk, it usually looks better than the original. Former automotive body process engineer. Edit am getting asked a lot as to why the last year would be bad. Yes, the large problems have been worked out, but in manufacturing, there will always be variability that is monitored and either adjusted where the part is made, the parts themselves, or the assembly jig to keep things within tolerances. Imagine you have playing cards and you have 3 buddies with hole punches, making a hole in the same spot in each card individually with different suppliers and equipment, and you have a time limit on how long it takes to make their punch. Over time, I'll guarantee even with a jig, they will start to vary. Punch gets worn out. Your card vendor this week sent card stock that's slightly thicker than the others. Humidity at friend 3's location caused the cards to swell. In a model change year, the folks that monitor and adjust for variability have tasks for the new model that takes their full attention away from the current model and splits it up. They're still the same highly qualified people as they were yesterday, but they're being pulled in more directions now. Where I worked, we had one ultra-accurate scanner to measure the entire body to find variability. Guess who got priority on the table? I've got 3 portable units to measure smaller parts out on the floor. One's at a vendor location tracking down a supplier problem. The other is figuring out why an A-pillar inner panel in the new model is twisted, and I get to shoot one to figure out why the tranny dog leg on the outer panel doesn't align well with the striker plate. Anyhow, that's why the last year should be avoided in most cases. These are all generalizations that always have an exception, or 3. Story 54. Therapist. Being rude to the receptionist or the other staff in general makes it really hard to approach you with unconditional, positive regard. Also, shed some light on how you function outside of the office. Story 55. I'm a software engineer. You would be absolutely astonished by how much of the web is cobbled together by barely functioning code that is likely commented with something to the effect of, "I don't know why this works when this is set, but it does, so I'm leaving it here." Story 56. Most IT departments are tragically understaffed, so they're not making you wait on your request for fun. Unless you're a jerk to them, then they're definitely making you wait for fun. They're also laughing about it. If you do want your request moved to the top of the queue with some regularity, a box of donuts left in the IT department once or twice a year is usually all it'll take. Also, not being a jerk. Story 57. I was an environmental consultant during the heyday, 90s. We worked for big clients, airports, refineries, chemical plants. As long as they were spending enough money on investigation, cleanup, the regulatory agencies would back off a little. So the metric was money spent, not necessarily solving problems. Environmental department heads were paid very well in those days, so they wanted big annual budgets. We had to come up with more and more projects so they could get bigger budgets next year. It got to the point where we would do green audits. We would do things like count the number of recycling bins and greatly overestimate the cost of their operation. How many solar panels they had, whether they were working or even plugged in, count carbon offsets, etc. The process quickly evolved into greenwashing. Typical cost for a large client, say American Airline, could cost hundreds of thousands of dollars for a report that nobody actually read. Story 58. It seems like the hack for employees in most industries is you get rewarded more for being well-liked than for working hard. Story 59. As an IT guy, I often start by telling people to reboot the system. They often reply with, "I've already rebooted." I reply back with, "We have to reboot again for my documentation." They usually understand and reboot. The thing is, I'm not documenting shoot. I just don't believe you. Because most of the time, they are lying about the reboot and have just convinced themselves that a reboot won't work. Story 60. There are 16 no-fault states and 1 territory in America. Arkansas, Delaware, Florida, Hawaii, Kansas, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, New Jersey, New York, North Dakota, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Utah, Puerto Rico. The asterisks indicate some additional complexities that take me a full day of training to discuss. The shortest possible version is, if you live in Michigan or New Jersey, ask your auto insurance and your health insurance how they address injuries caused by car accidents. No fault means it does not matter who is responsible for the accident, Your auto insurance pays your medical bills. Full stop. It doesn't matter if you got T-boned by a tipsy driver without insurance while you were at a stoplight and they were texting a full manifesto. Your insurance pays your medical bills. It's even more than that. If you live in a no-fault state, if you are a pedestrian and you get hit crossing the street, your auto insurance pays your medical. Most people know all of that. Here's the part you might not be aware of. No fault is not exclusive to injuries caused by collisions. If you close your fingers in your car door, that is a no-fault injury. You need to call your auto insurance and report it because they are liable for those medical bills. If you were injured as a direct result of contact with an insured automobile, that is a no-fault injury. Working on your car and the engine block fell out and crushed your foot, that's an NF injury. Call your auto insurance. Getting out of your car, tripped on the seatbelt and shattered your patella on concrete, that is not a NF injury. Causation was the concrete. That you tripped on the seatbelt is irrelevant. This is extremely important because NF injuries need to be reported to your auto carrier. They need to have an open case so they can pay your claims. Because if your health insurance discovers that any claim is related to an NF injury, and believe me, we will, they will deny it and anything that looks related. And there is a timely filing deadline for you to notify your carrier about the injury. In NY, it is 60 days. If 60 days go by and you haven't told your auto insurance about an NF injury, they will deny it as non-compliant. And then your health insurance will deny as eligible for NF. And then that bill lands on you and there is nothing anyone can do about it. Every single insurance carrier in this country is looking for an excuse to not have to pay the claim. Existing regulations very strictly prevent us from doing so without a specific reason. If you give us a reason, we will jump on it. Siri. Side note, pretty much anything that does not have doors, windows, and seat belts are not eligible for NF. Motorcycles, ATVs, snowmobiles, your health insurance is responsible for those claims. Also, and this may come as a shock, any injury caused in the process of committing a crime is not eligible for NF. Your health insurance pays those claims. That includes DUIs, attempting to evade police, driving in a stolen car. If you get injured while driving tipsy, your insurance will refuse those claims. And that refusal is not grounds for your health insurance to deny the claim. One last thing, if your auto insurance tells you to attend an IME, independent medical exam, no matter how inconvenient it is, you do it. If you miss an IME, your auto insurance will deny your claims. And that denial is grounds for your health insurance to deny the claims too. Story 61. A CT scan is significantly cheaper if scheduled outpatient instead of at the ER. Like 5x to 10x cheaper. Like 5,000 versus 600. It might even use the same CT scanner, the same doctor. The report might take an hour instead of a half hour to get completed. And my foot has been hurting for a week. I don't know why, it's not an emergency. Go through your regular PCP and have them order your x-ray. Story 62. Library late fees will usually be forgiven if you ask nicely, as long as you aren't a habitual late returner or on the library's shoot list. Story 63. Self-storage industry. You reset your rent increase scheduling by transferring units. Most storage companies raise rent every 4-6 months. Complain about something, ask to transfer to another unit, your rent schedule resets to square one. Let's say you get a rent increase every year, and it's month 11 since you moved in. If you go to another unit at the same price, it will take another year before that new one gets a rent increase. Story 64. You can and should get your kid an evaluation for learning disabilities if there is any potential. Many parents want to avoid potential stigma, but depending on your school district, they might not tell you because they don't want to increase their SPED caseload. Story 65. You will almost always get a better rate term on a car loan if you go directly to the finance company. Even if you get the quotes from the dealer and take those quotes to those lenders, you will likely find a better deal. Always bring your own financing to the car lot. Always. Source. I work in indirect lending. It is my business to make money off of people who finance at the dealership. Story 66. Be very careful about what you say to doctors and healthcare staff to go into your records. That information could be used against you by the insurance company for something completely unrelated years later. Got in a car accident 10 years ago and went to the doctor for a sore back but just iced it, etc. Oh, clearly that's what caused the work-related injury 10 years later, and you didn't actually hurt yourself at work. Insurance companies frequently search historical records for evidence the injury occurred elsewhere. Story 67. The term military grade means high cost, low quality, but we have a military contract, so deal with it. Story 68. Not really a hack, but always apply for financial assistance if you have a hospital bill. The limits are often much higher than you would think. My hospital goes all the way up to 500 of the federal poverty level. Story 69. Press 2 for Spanish. 90 of the time, the people manning the Spanish lines are bilingual, and the wait times aren't nearly as long. This is more like an unethical life hack, but it is true they would prefer you not find out about. Do it. Story 70. If you have a hotel reservation arriving tomorrow, but with a 2-day cancellation policy, and you have to cancel, reschedule it instead for a week out. Then later, call back and cancel since you're outside of the policy. Story 71. Telemarketer, shush, it puts food on the table. If you say, put me on your do not call list, or take me off your calling list, and if the company is based the USA, they are legally obligated to take your number off the list of numbers they call. Story 72. I'm a janitor. Did you know you can move 2 feet to your left and actually get trash in the trash can? Most office workers don't know this, it seems. I cannot count how many snot-filled Kleenexes and empty food wrappers I find near a trash can, but not in it. Story 73. You can do most maintenance on your own car. I'm a professional mechanic, and my best resource for information is a quick YouTube search. Story 74. I work in mental health, and regular exercise has been proven to have higher efficacy than antidepressant medications, therapy, microdosing, etc. for improving mood and alleviating symptoms of depression and anxiety. Exercise is king. I shout this as much as possible, of course, but just saying edit after reply hostility. My intention was to simply share the data. As someone diagnosed with MDD many years back, I empathize with the struggle for some of us to even get out of bed. Creating a new movement routine from a variety of mental health states can feel nearly impossible. Some clients take a hybrid approach and use medication to help jumpstart others' goals like exercise. And lastly, the monoamine theory of depression is just that, a theory. It seems not all of us are helped by modulating serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine. It's always valuable to consider other sources like hormones, vitamin D, diet, hydration, 1-2 IUZ per day per pound of body weight regarding biological causes F when present. Some causes appear to be related to the overproduction of glutamate for not just depression, but OCD. Some find relief utilizing ketamine therapy when treatment resistance from monoamine approach. Specific data, placebos have been showing to be 30-50 effective against depression. Antidepressants have been shown to be 50-70 effective at home. It's important to note that there have been criticisms of past studies and even books authored on this topic. Exercise meta-studies have indicated about 50 reduction in symptoms, with 1999 Duke Smile study measuring 60-75 after 16 weeks of aerobic exercise, about 3 sessions per week. In specific studies under optimal conditions, efficacy rates as high as 80 have been reported. Exercise seems to work best for mild-moderate depression, but impressive data has been reported for MDD as well. Can you answer in mental health too and preach to clients that diet and exercise have surprisingly great mental health data, but some research suggests that exercise isn't as effective for women with depression, and it's much more effective for people with mild to moderate anxiety and depressive symptoms than those with severe. I simply caution there's nuance here, because I've seen plenty of severely depressed people blamed for their condition because they're too depressed to exercise, and I have some very active exercisers who persist in having mental illness. It's a powerful part of treatment for sure, though. If substances companies could make money off diet and exercise, everyone would know how effective they are. Story 75. If you're not a jerk and ask for things nicely, congratulations, you just found the life hack to all areas in life. Story 76. Come dressed for your diagnostic appointment. It's faster for the techs if you don't have to change and will like you more. Story 77. I used to work front desk at a hotel. 1. If you greet and are nice, you will get upgraded to a nice room. 2. If you're not, we'll put you in a not-so-great room. 3. Do not ask for our restaurant recommendation. We get discounts when we refer guests, not because we think the food is good. Story 78. Sales depth for life insurance. Whenever we ask you questions about your health or lifestyle and you want to get approved, only answer with a straight yes or no. Don't disclose anything else unless we specifically ask for it. Example, we ask about any time you've been admitted to a hospital as an inpatient because of a heart attack, and you've been to the hospital about a lung issue one time and a broken leg for another time or something, then say no and nothing else. Even at claims time, when the lung issue gets brought up, You can request the 4-call recording, and the call will show that lung issues were never asked about on the call. Just say yes or no, nothing else. Story 79. If you're in credit card debt, a lot of companies will allow you to negotiate a better interest rate if you agree to start making payments. You'll save a ton of money on interest, and your credit score won't take a hit from missing a payment. It will likely increase your credit utilization, but that's just temporary and isn't as bad. I was out of work for a bit due to medical reasons and put my life on a credit card. That is what they are for, after all. I let my card go overdue, called in and told them the situation, and said I couldn't afford the minimum payments. They set me up with lower payments with an interest rate that was like 15 APR lower than it would have been if I just let it sit on my card. Story 80. At GameStop, if you get a pre-owned controller and get the warranty, you can come back a year later, get a fresh pre-owned controller, and just have to pay the warranty cost again. This used to work with new controllers, but the policy changed. Story 81. All of the ghostwriting paralegals do for attorneys. I always think how pissed I would be to find out that I was paying for attorney time and getting paralegal time. Story 82. Electric guitars made out of fancy, expensive wood will sound exactly the same as guitars made out of cheap wood. The electronic system is what makes electric guitars sound different from one another, not the fancy flamed maple top. It's pure aesthetics. Answer. I always joke about the wood of my modular synthesizer case being special tone wood that brings out the special vibrations. I cannot comprehend how people believe that wood type has any effect on electromagnetic coils. It's also perfectly valid to buy a guitar from a wood type you think is pretty. I don't get why people have to justify it with a load of mumbo-jumbo. Story 83. Food service worker here. I work in a restaurant that's like if Subway made burgers. You can pick and choose all of the toppings and we build it in front of you. Some things, bacon, extra cheese, fried eggs, multiple sides, cost extra. Here's where the trick comes in. If it's quiet and you want to get something extra for free, just be nice. Say please and thank you and just be a generally kind person. I cannot count the amount of times I've told someone they had to pay extra and stuck to the book just because they were a jerk to me. I always sneak an extra handful of fries or a few onion rings to people who are kind to me, and so do all of my coworkers. It pays to be kind, and it costs you nothing. Story 84. Payment confirmation numbers don't mean anything. We have no idea where or how to use them 95 of the time. Story 85. To get free trials without worry of them expiring and you getting billed, go to and get a virtual credit card. Also, it is great if you subscribe and you do not want an automatic annual renewal to hit you later. Story 86. Dealership hack. Nowadays, with how much tech is in cars, it really is smart to get an extended service contract, but only bumper-to-bumper ones that cover all that tech. What most people don't know is those service contracts, warranties, are negotiable just like the car is. There's typically $2,000 in markup. So if the finance guy offers you a plan with an 8-year, 100,000-mile full bumper-to-bumper for $3,900, offer to buy it for $2,500, he'll likely accept. If not, they'll at least shave $1,000 off. Also tell them it's not a monthly payment thing, but an overall price thing. Otherwise, they'll just play with the term and rate to keep the full price and lower your payment. Story 87. Bartender here. If you're at an event with an open bar or something similar, tip $20 cash on your first drink and introduce yourself to your bartender, if it isn't crazy busy. Give them the cash and say some variation on, "Hey X, good to meet you. My name's Mike. I'm going to be drinking your drink order all night. Thanks for taking care of us at this event. Guarantees good service, skipping the line, etc." Answer, I did this at a resort in Cuba. It was all inclusive, so the drinks were free. Walked up to the bar, introduced myself, and handed the bartender a Canadian 20 bill and told him my usual order. Sure enough, every time I went up, Jimmy would make a beeline over to me and just ask, "The usual brother?" Hell, there was one instance he walked away from someone about to order and came to the other side of the bar to me. Best bartender ever. Story 88. Animal medicine. Just because you put clothes on your pet doesn't make him your child. Please don't spend more money than you can afford. Even if we manage to get your 14-year-old dog through cancer, you still have a 14-year-old dog. You should not make your pet suffer because you feel sad. Fido isn't enjoying life, let him go. Story 89. I worked in a call center for Disneyland years ago. One of the famous attractions, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, takes writers through the story of Mr. Toad, which involves him getting hit by a train and winding up in hell. So when we say, make sure to check out Mr. Toad's Wild Ride while you're here, we're telling you to go to hell. Story 90. If you have to get rid of a couch, chair, bed, or anything big, don't call your garbage company. They'll charge you $25 minimum and up to whatever they want. The garbage truck driver sees none of that. Talk to your garbage truck driver if you can, or leave a note, and 5, 10 or more if you want. And well, make it disappear. We remember you so well. Make sure you are always taken care of. Story 91. Optician here. Blue light filtering in your glasses is a scam and is a slap in the face to the integrity of optometry and opticianry on how it's just been fully accepted and pushed without any convincing evidence just because of most frames are only made by a few manufacturers. Look for features in a frame you like thickness of material, spring hinges, whatever, not brand name. There's a good chance the cheaper stuff is made to the same standard and even by the same suppliers as the more expensive brands. And you'll find that the expensive stuff is made out of cheap materials just as frequently. You do not need polycarbonate lenses. It is usually an upsell. It is an awful brittle material that scratches very easily with horrible optical qualities. If you have a lighter prescription, get CR39, and if you have a higher prescription, get high index 1.6 or 1.74 lenses. The only time you need polycarbonate lenses is if they are for safety or sports frames. Aspheric lenses are not a scam, but offer little benefit to lighter RXs. Again, just an upsell 80 of the time. I would say to ask your opticians most of the time for guidance, but most of them will tell you to get more than what you need, either because of commission or required attachment rates for certain features, or because they are uneducated opticians who don't know anything about what they're doing. If you live in a state with no licensing requirements for opticians, which is like half of them, there's a good chance your optician has absolutely no prior experience or education. You can check or ask to see if they are certified, but that should be the bare minimum. I see my coworker, who has been an optician for 20 years, regularly make simple errors and bad adjustments that I often have to undo when patients come back a week later with ear nose pain, and they refuse to get their certs because they know what they are doing. Lastly, if your optometrist ever writes your contact RX for AccuView, one day max, get a new optometrist. It is a ridiculously expensive contact with little improvement over previous one-day AccuView lenses, and it's $1,200 for a year supply at the cheapest. I cannot in good faith recommend such an expensive product when there are so many viable alternatives for third-tier the price. Story 92. I worked for Wells Fargo doing customer service on mortgages. If you use the keywords lawyer, media, or government, we're trained to escalate you immediately to the highest level of customer service. Background. If you call for a question about your mortgage, there are 5 tiers of representatives. If you call and say, give me a manager, you'll only get to tier 3. The media, lawyer, government statements get you escalated to essentially tier 6 of salaried customer service representatives that will essentially be given a ticket to fully research your complaint and prepare a summary and a complete and total cover your jerk manner. You may not like the result, but they will do enough due diligence on your question so they're comfortable they won't be sued. Story 93. I'm a teacher. You can learn anything you want now from the internet if you have the willpower. Teaching continues to exist because most humans learn best with someone to hold them accountable in human interaction. That said, especially with YouTube, if you have a little patience and aren't afraid of trial and error, you can literally learn anything. Add, as many of you pointed out, plenty of room for nuance, and I am speaking very generally. But very interesting discussion, so thank you all. There's probably a balance to be made between situations where we can use our own intrinsic motivation to learn in the moments we recognize our needs for an experienced person in the subject to motivate us and bounce ideas off of. I do sometimes feel a bit guilty that I could be learning literally anything I want, and I'm scrolling Reddit. Guilty. I am the reason for my own job security. I also need the accountability at times. Story 94. If you're in Canada and have a retail trading account and want to convert CDN cash to US, depending on the urgency of the conversion, if you don't need it now, and it is a significant amount, don't just convert it over and pay your bank between 1.5 to 3 on the exchange. DLR and DLRU are one-day settlement securities. DLR is CDN, DLRU is US currency. Buy the DLR. Next business day, transfer it to the US side of your account. Sell DLRU in the US account. It takes the DLR and covers. That way, you only pay whatever your commission is on the buy-sell. You don't pay the conversion rate. As I'm typing this, spot rate on the market is 1.36. My firm is charging 1.39 if you just transfer over directly. Anything that is going to cost you less than 20 bucks on exchange rate, go ahead and just transfer over. But if you are transferring, i.e. 10,000 CDN to US, there's a difference of 280 bucks. If you are planning ahead, buy the DLR, then transfer it over on settlement, sell the DLR.U, you only pay the commission of 20 bucks on the buy sell. You are also looking at a 3-day movement. If it's a rush, sucks to be you pay the extra rate. If you have a margin account, you can do a true Norbert's Gambit and buy today, initiate the transfer, and put the sell order today so that it cuts a day out. Buy settles, gets transferred immediately to cover the sell that settles the same day. But most retail outlets require you to do this through their phone brokers, so you have to pay the broker rate on the one side of the transaction, so it's more expensive. They do this to try to encourage you to do the transfer manually yourself in your account, so that they make the 280 bucks off you. It pays to plan. Story 95. I'm a trucker. One thing we wish you didn't know, waiting until you're a sufficiently safe distance in front of us before moving back over. Gets these dang four-wheelers home safe every time, and we just dislike IT. Story 96. Where I work, I'm supposed to pitch a discount card that gets the customer 10 off their purchases with my company, plus discounts at other companies. You get a free 30-day trial, then it's 12 every month after that. My coworkers and I tell them to call to cancel as soon as the next day. You still get the 30-day free trial, the 10, and other discounts within that trial, then you can start it up all over again in another 30 days. Turns out, if you call to cancel, they're offering up to a year free. IDK, you didn't hear that from me though. Story 97. I work for an environmental climate change nonprofit. When it comes to more local organizations like mine, your donations are significantly more effective in helping create lasting policy changes. For the larger nonprofits, particularly national ones, so much of what you donate goes to overhead and development fundraising that it doesn't make sense to donate unless you're a mega-rich donor. The smaller orgs, state and local, thrive on smaller donations. A lot of national organizations will give grants to smaller orgs for their work, but it's significantly more effective to just donate straight to your local nonprofit. The national folks only want you to donate through them so they can start tracking you, putting you on email call lists, etc. Story 98. I used to work for a family that put together art and craft shows. They said that each artist's work was submitted to a jury to determine if they were approved to have a stand. The jury was just the owners, wife and son, figuring out how much to charge them. I also worked for an award company. Most awards are paid for. Story 99. Working in IT and doing customer support. We often don't know the solution any more than you. We're just used to Googling shoot fast, using the right keywords when searching, and of course, filtering out all the bullshit. Story 100. I work in pharmacy and just want to reiterate being nice to the text pharmacists in retail. Out of your blood pressure medicine, for example, no more refills on your last script as long as you're nice about it and willing to give a 3 to 5 day supply for time to get in touch with your doc to send us a new script. But come into the pharmacy being a bee, yelling, shouting, and complaining that it's our fault we didn't receive the new script. Oops, suddenly there's nothing I can do. Story 101. Accountants use the same or similar tax prep software as you. If you are a W-2 filer, just do it yourself. Story 102. We know when your dog ate plant substance at the ER vet. You don't have to lie about it, LOL. You won't get in trouble. See also, I've only worked at one vet out of 8 that doesn't cut corners in their practice. Another one. If most people knew how expensive bulldogs are to upkeep, I don't think most people would own them. If you don't have 10K in your bank account, don't get a bulldog. Story 103. I'm a cognitive behavioral therapist. I make people believe they're coming up with the best ideas. I know if you're being unreasonable, unrealistic, overreacting, self-destructive. I'll never tell you if you are, but I'll ask you questions until you... Thank you for watching the video all the way to the end. If you'd like to see more content like this, you might be interested to know that I've created another channel with a similar theme, especially for those of you who enjoy what I do. I'll leave a link in the description, and I hope to see you there. Take care.